Coast. Thank you for joining this webinar. Pleased to give you an update on, as Evie said, both the Bygoo Tin Project and the Weethalle Gold Project option agreement that we've recently undertaken. You can find a copy of the ASX, copy of the presentation on the ASX website. Just starting off with a corporate overview, just a reminder. This slide has changed a little bit since our last webinar. Recent capital raising, $4.6 million raise. A lot of that went to existing shareholders, plus Justin and myself kicked into that raise as well. And I guess the real story from that was great to see Lion Selection Group join our register. Lion Selection are actually a listed ASX fund, LSX. Have got quite a good following, very sophisticated investors in the junior exploration space. There's not a lot of funds out there that invest long term at this end of the market. Lion Selection are one of them, and got a great reputation, great track record of success. So we're really pleased to have them on the register. Quite a kick up in volume and share price over the last 6 weeks, basically since the start of September. Had a lot of good traction on the Kelpie mineral resource and also the Weethalle option agreement, which will be the focus for this presentation. So we'll start with Bygoo and talking about the recent news on the tin front. Really pleased to have announced this maiden inferred resource, just under 4 million tonnes at 0.5% tin for just under 20,000 tonnes of contained tin. A really robust resource, really the culmination of a great bit of work by our team in combining all the legacy data of previous operators, plus our own work, particularly on understanding the geological setting of this deposit, has enabled or facilitated this maiden resource. 0.5% tin is a very good grade in an open pit environment. And I guess what we're really aiming to do is to grow this resource in that, or expand the resource in an open pit scenario and keep that grade around about that 0.5%. Now I have a little video here, which just to give you a bit of sense for what that resource looks like. As you can see, it's in an open pit constraint, so we've put some shells around it. And the resource itself is really in kind of 3 parts, and that's really a function of where the drilling currently lies. There's gaps, and let me just pause that. As you can see, there's gaps in the resource, and that is a function of where the drilling is. And I guess that's probably where our next sort of focus lies. And just let me pause that for a second. So I guess what we're aiming to do from this point onwards is to grow that resource by drilling extensions to that resource. This figure shows the granite contact. So mineralization sits in the Ardlethan granite, so Gryson style, sits on the granite. Sediments and volcanics as a hanging wall, and mineralization at that contact zone, and extending underneath up to 20-30 meters beneath that contact zone. We've been able to get out on the ground and map that contact zone, which is that pink shade wireframe, and that really presents the case for growth in what we presented as an exploration target, so a JORC compliant exploration target. But that's really only still part of the story. So the exploration target itself, 12 to 20 million tonnes at around about the same resource grade as Kelpie, demonstrates that we can probably grow this resource about 2 to 3 times. But I think that really is only the tip of the iceberg, because we're sitting in a much larger mineralized environment. We see evidence of tin mineralization for up to 2 kilometers away, lots of historical workings, and both mineralization open along strike to the north and south. Now, this is a bit of a video of what Kelpie itself looks like. You can see there's a lot of historical workings, bit of sort of excavations there on the right. This work goes back to the early 1900s. There's reports in the papers of the day reporting that tin mineralization being mined around about 6% mark, so very high grade tin, but relatively shallow as it was back in those days. What we've been able to do is extend mineralization up to 190 meters below surface, but it's still open. Now, we're lucky to have the team out on site the other week. Great to see John Hronsky, one of our directors, providing some of his skills and knowledge and looking around at what is beyond just Kelpie. And this is some of the footage of some of the surrounding areas. This video here is actually another historical site. We haven't drilled this yet. It's known as Big Bygoo. Some very significant infrastructure, and this is well inside the granite contact. So there's many different exploration targets here. We're still learning about what is controlling mineralization, but both the opportunities lie inbound from that granite contact, but also along strike. And this area along strike is kind of interesting. It's all under a very shallow cover of 1 to 2 meters, and has never been drilled. And I guess that's the theme across most of this project area. And where we see the opportunity is that there's not a lot of drilling outside of that immediate resource area. And whilst we think there's great opportunities to grow the resource at Kelpie, we think there's excellent opportunity to find new deposits elsewhere in the project area. And I guess that's where, so this is part of our bigger picture thinking. We've got multiple sort of targets to work on, not just on expanding the resource at Kelpie, but trying to recognise mineralisation elsewhere across the project area. And to that end, we recently flew an aeromagnetic survey to help us with targeting across that project area. We think that magnetics is a very useful tool for mapping structure, and a lot of the mineralisation here could be very structurally controlled. So we had this is what an aeromagnetic survey looks like, low level flying, plane's only 35 meters above the ground. You know, kudos to the pilots who do this kind of work. Pretty crazy stuff. That's the Newell Highway that he's flying over there, and I'm sure that truck that's going underneath the plane, I'm sure the driver was quite surprised seeing a plane at such low level. But that plane just flies backwards and forwards across the project area, very short distances, provides very high resolution data. And this is some footage from down at Bald Hill. That's actually Bald Hill down at the background, in the background. Lots of historical workings through this area. So this is right at the very southern end of the project area. But we're yet to do any drilling. There has been some drilling there. So this is the area that we're talking about right down here. 9.5%, that was pretty much from surface. So there's plenty of other opportunities to discover new tin deposits in this project area. And of course, let's not forget that there's an existing mine right in the middle of the project, not part of our project, of course, that mined over 20,000 tonnes of tin over a 20-year period up until the mid-1980s. And we think there's a lot of opportunities next door to that mine. Our tenement boundary runs pretty much up to the mine boundary. And we've got lots of indications of tin around that mine in our project area. There's been a lot of rock chip sampling, reconnaissance type drilling, effectively soil geochemistry, that indicates there's a lot of tin in this surrounding area that we call Ardlethan East. This is what the mine site looks like. It's actually active today. There's tailings retreatment going on, recovering tin that's left in the tailings. That's the Ardlethan pit, quite a substantial pit with underground workings underneath it. A view looking out from that, the waste dump out north towards Kelpie. So as you can see, it's all agricultural farmland. And then stepping back a little bit, this is the sort of Ardlethan East area, another pit that's been filled with tailings there on the right, the White Crystal pit. But this area surrounding the mine is what we call Ardlethan East. And that's kind of our second target for us at the moment. Very good opportunities to find another Ardlethan style of deposit, which would be a breccia pipe underneath some sedimentary cover. So that sedimentary cover, similar to the hanging wall at Bygoo, volcanics and sediments, shouldn't really have any tin in it unless there's leakage from a tin source underneath that cover, but which would be relatively shallow. So we're working up some targets there, as well as in the broader project area. Now, the other bit of news, I guess, from Kelpie, there is met work going on. One small part of that met work was to test the amenability of the ore for ore sorting, which I'm pleased to say returned positive results. It's a very high level test at this stage, only a small amount of sample. As you can see here, we did 2 samples, a high grade and a low grade sample. The high grade sample is only 8.5 kilos, low grade 4 kilos. So very, very small sample, but it's indicative of whether this style of mineralisation is amenable to ore sorting. And we kind of expected it would be, because cassiterite, the primary tin ore mineral, is very dense. And so it stands out from the surrounding gangue minerals. And this shot on the right is what that looks like. It uses X-rays to scan the rock. It picks the differences in atomic density by running the results of that scanning through some proprietary software, which recognises what's waste and what's product. Product comes out as sort of these little black dots. Got a bit of this is Tomra's testing facility in Sydney. This is not our ore. This is actually some of Sky Metals ore. Goes down a conveyor belt into the machine. This triangular aluminium sort of features the actual scanner. The belt's moving quite fast, and then it runs over this sort of belt here. We'll slow it down. And you can sort of see that most of the material is just running off the conveyor belt into this chute. But you see the odd bit of material being spat up here. There are air jets right on the edge of this belt that recognise which rocks have got cassiterite in them and which don't. Air jet fires the mineralisation off into a separate chute, comes down underneath the machine into 2 different chutes. That's the waste on the left, product on the right. As you can see, as I said, this is Sky's material. Thanks, shout out to those guys for allowing us to see their product in action. That's waste, pretty bland, and that's product. All that black mineral you can see there is cassiterite. So really pleased with how that has gone for us so far. Significant upgrades in our material gives us a lot of confidence to do some bulk test work of, say, 500 to 700 kilos next time round. But in the meantime, we're waiting to see how the rest of our metallurgical test work goes, which includes gravity, and we will probably do a little bit of float tests at the end of that program as well. And I guess this is the real kicker for the company at the moment. This represents the size of all the Australian listed tin companies, or companies with an Australian domiciled project. Kelpie is relatively small at the current juncture, but I think we've indicated that we've got good opportunities to grow that resource. And what we're aiming to achieve is to have the highest grade open pit resource in Australia. All these deposits on the right are all underground in Tasmania. Renison, of course, part owned by Metals X, is the only producing mine in Australia at the current juncture. But, you know, I think we're well placed to change that. We're now demonstrated that we have a viable tin project, or at least on the pathway to demonstrating a viable tin project. And I think the metallurgy to follow will be another key part of that. In the meantime, an option agreement to acquire 80% of the Weethalle project, just a short distance north of Bygoo. So in the same district, same type of rocks. Really excited to be able to get the opportunity to explore this project. We've signed an agreement with a group, Weethalle Gold Proprietary Limited, Richard Blewett and David McInnes, some private guys who've done a magnificent job of working up this project essentially from scratch to drill readiness stage. Now, there was many things that we liked about the project. I guess the first thing that caught our attention is the geological setting, and of course this obviously appealed to the vendors as well. Recognizing the geological setting was very similar to other well-known mineralized areas. As an example, the Hemi deposit in the Pilbara, West Australia, and that is a circular granite feature with rocks that have sort of had to wrap around it. It creates an interesting sort of structural position for gold mineralization, usually in areas that we call the pressure shadows around that granite. So in the case of Hemi, just here, so we've rotated that figure to be in the same orientation as we are at Weethalle. The main prospect area here at Uratha would be in one of what we call that strain shadow. And it's kind of the intersection of major north-south trending faults and approximately east-west crossing faults intersecting those. So a really interesting sort of structural location for gold mineralization. There has been some mining here in the past, very high grade gold recovered from the Uratha workings, quartz and sulfide rich style of ore running up to 5 ounces reportedly during the 1930s. Over quite a significant strike length. So the drone is taken up from one end, we're flying down. You can see there's some more significant workings down this end, flying sort of west, looking down on those workings, some significant infrastructure here. But surprisingly, not a lot of work since. There has been, say, 10 to a dozen drill holes over the last sort of 20 years, but not a lot of exploration given the interest in gold in recent years. You can see that there was some significant infrastructure here. These are footings from the plant back in the day that sheds a newer feature, but quite a significant kind of mine in its day, and not surprisingly when you're running 5 gram dirt. So really interesting so it's good to see that there is mineralization, gold mineralization in the project area, but it's not necessarily what our main focus is. Now this is the results of an IP survey, induced polarization. The good thing about having a sulfide rich ore body is it is conducive to IP techniques. Sulfides act kind of like a capacitor and hold charge. So this is probably one of the most comprehensive IP surveys I've ever seen. Multiple lines of IP across that prospect area. This is the Uratha mine section, and we were encouraged by the fact that there's a response. So we're looking for warmer colours to demonstrate an anomaly. So the mine itself kind of lights up. what's even more interesting is that underneath that mine is an even bigger IP anomaly, and we'll get back to that in a second. But I guess what really captures our imagination is the fact as the IP survey is expanded out to the east. That's when the largest or the strongest part of the anomaly was recognised, and this is up to 15 times background. And interestingly, despite there being a few sort of minor workings and the odd rock chip sample, not a single kind of drill hole in that part of the prospect area. So that IP anomaly is represented in this figure with this purple shade sort of projected to surface. No drilling. There has been some XRF geochem sampling across that, which has mapped this interesting arsenic anomaly coincident with the IP anomaly. So this is really important in exploration, is starting to see anomalism in multiple independent data sets. It reduces the risk of false positives and increases your chance of discovery. So the fact that we're seeing, well, firstly, we know there's gold in the system from the historical mining. We're seeing a really interesting IP anomaly that should be mapping sulfide, which we know is associated with mineralization. And we're seeing pathfinder elements and gold mineralization in soils in that same area. That's a fantastic starting point and definitely worthy of a drill hole. And that is kind of where we are at the moment, preparing for the first drilling of this particular area. Now you notice that it's an interesting sort of circular, the soil anomaly is sort of mapping an interesting sort of circular feature which corresponds with this. This is an air photo. You can see it's farmland, but this is sort of some remnant bushland. We'll show off some video of that shortly. We think that this might be the surface expression of an intrusion underneath the surface, underneath some sedimentary rocks that could be driving this gold mineralization. So intrusive related gold system. Now myself and the team, plus Richard Blewett, this is Richard Blewett here, Dave McInnes, the vendors of the project, out on site the other week, having an inspection. This is sort of what it looks like. Actually, let me just stop there for a second. Let me rewind that. Notice that there's quite a topic. So we're actually on that ring feature that I was talking about before. Quite a topographic rise above the plains, the paddocks underneath it. It'd be several meters of relief. And so we're out there looking at what it looks like on the surface. Not a lot of exposure, but where what there was quite interesting rocks. Gary pretty happy with what he's found there. Evidence of gold, of quartz veining on the surface. You can see in this figure little quartz veins running through these sedimentary rocks. Sediments aren't the host. We're looking for gold and or quartz granite rocks underneath this, but really encouraging signs at the surface. And look, there's some limited drill core available. I guess what we have recognised. This is drilling underneath the Uratha workings. What we recognised that there was some encouraging results from that drilling. We've come to sort of realise that it probably wasn't as effective as what it could be. Not all that core has been sampled. Probably a lost opportunity there, really. So we're not discounting the fact that there might actually be opportunities underneath those workings. We're actually reasonably bullish that there are good opportunities to extend mineralisation beneath those workings. So we're gearing up for a drill program at the moment. I've been telling people it's coming up at the end of the month, which is only next week, and that is when, ladies and gentlemen, our drill program is due to start. Riggers mobilising over the weekend, and we'll be striking a blow drilling a short RC program across those IP and soil geochem anomalies, uh, totaling up to about 1,200 meters of RC. We may break it up into two parts. We'll see how we go after the first few holes. So exciting times. I think this is, personally for me, one of the most interesting greenfields gold projects in the country at the moment. Not a single drill hole. It's a great opportunity for us to drill those first holes. And what is a well-endowed gold region. Lake Cowal is a big mine. I think 9 million ounce endowment, only a short distance away. So it's a gold producing region, and this area hasn't really seen any modern exploration. So great opportunity. So this is what our workflow looks like over the coming months. There's some metallurgy results for Kelpie coming towards the end of November. Weethalle drilling in the meantime, and that's really the focus. Drilling a greenfields gold target. Really excited about that. We should have the results for that towards the end of November. There'll be some further news about the exploration targets at Bygoo, and then leading into Kelpie extensional drilling and other reconnaissance type work across the Bygoo project. So, ladies and gentlemen, very exciting time for Caspin. We're thrilled to be starting to get some recognition in the market, but still a long way to go. I think Kelpie, or the Bygoo Tin Project, basically underpins the value of our company. And then on top of that, we're throwing in a free option on a really interesting gold project at Weethalle. So great times for the company. And so, Evie, I guess I'll throw it open to some questions if there are any.
There actually are some questions. Someone stole my question, but I'll get to that one last. Just sticking to the theme of today, how indicative is the Weethalle option deal and Caspin's ability to connect with the local population and recent explorers in the region?
Yeah, so look, we part of the site visit last week was to visit some of the key landowners of where we're drilling. Quite welcoming. The project, there's two key farmer landowners at the Uratha prospect. We met them. They're quite happy to allow us to do our exploration work. Look, my personal experience around the Ardlethan area and Weethalle, really great people, hardy, resilient farming communities, looking for economic prosperity. So they want to see jobs and opportunities in their townships and seeing their communities grow. And exploration is a great way of spreading that economic wealth that we can generate. So no, we've been reasonably well received.
Okay, another one's just come through. How many meters is the gold target drill program? What method of drilling? I think you already stated
Yeah,
RC.
about 1,200 meters of RC, because the targets are
Yeah.
shallow. That's probably something I didn't mention. Those IP anomalies are less than 200 meters depth. Our drill holes are in a range of about 100 to 150 meters. We'll drill about 6 to 8. However, I might say we might split it into two parts. The Uratha workings are probably worthy of a drill hole themselves, which are actually in crop at the moment. So this is actually a view on this top left is a view standing from the road, looking back towards the Uratha workings. That little white dot is that shed that I showed in the video. So that's under crop. We'd love to drill a hole under those workings. So we may come back after that harvest and drill a hole there. So we have the ability to change our program somewhat on the fly.
Yeah, okay. That answers the rest of that question. And also, what is the expected assay turnaround time?
Probably 2 to 4 weeks, something
Yeah,
like that.
very
Gold initially, then multi-elements.
awesome. And just how significant is the recent US shift into investment in critical minerals in Australia for Caspin? And might this be commanding change? See the Australian government moderate their legislative suppression of mining and exploration.
Yeah, well, geez, this could be a long answer, but New South Wales, is being very proactive in promoting critical minerals.
Mhm.
So that's a good start. So we're seeing that at both state and, of course, at a federal level, which is kind of where the question is sort of going. I'd love to see the detail of that agreement between Australia and the US. Um, I think most of it is geared around rare earths. So people confuse critical minerals with rare earths. I think a lot of the focus is on rare earths. A lot of the rare earth mineral deposits are in Australia, but there isn't any sort of processing capacity either in Australia or the US. But interestingly, tin is on the US critical minerals list. In Australia, it's only on the strategic minerals list. And I guess the difference is the US has no operating tin mines, believe it or not. Australia has just the one, Renison, and for that reason, it's on Australia's strategic minerals list. But here's the opportunity for tin. Everyone kind of recognizes the opportunities for copper in the electrification or change of energy into electrification. Everyone recognizes you need copper for poles and wires and all that kind of business, but you need tin for solder to glue all that circuitry together, which is kind of flying underneath the radar at the minute. So copper and tin kind of go hand in hand. I think there is an opportunity for Australia to be the dominant Western world producer of tin. You know, most of it comes from Southeast Asia and parts of Africa. Good production in Peru, but Australia has the potential to be a world leader in the production of tin. So come on, Team Australia, let's put it on the critical minerals list and let's be part of that. I think there's great opportunities for Australia and for Caspin with this sort of a deal.
Yeah, great. I think we'll wrap it up here. If there's any other questions that have come through, I'll just send them your way, and you can just get back to them via email. Thank you for submitting your questions, everybody. But let's wrap it up. Everyone needs to get on with their day. Thank you so much, Greg. And
Thank you.
that was a great update. And this has been recorded, so we will be sending out the replay.
All right. Thanks, Evie, and thanks everyone for joining. Thank you.